Feminists can't say anything against fake women or actual men coming into women's sports and walking away with all the medals, the scholarships, the endorsement deals and such, because they've been telling us all for decades now that women can do anything a man can do and do it better. If feminists were to demand now that pretend women get out of women's sports, they'd be admitting that feminism has been a sham all along. After all, these pretend women are actually weakened men with purposely reduced testosterone levels, and they're running roughshod over women in all the sports to which they gain entry.
This is Dr. Avenir. This is Dr. Avenir.
Many people are wondering why the feminists don't come out and protest vigorously against fake women participating in women's sports and dominating those women's sports. Because let's face it, when a fake woman jumps into a swimming meet and takes first place, well, that means that the second place woman is denied her gold medal, the third place woman is denied her silver, if you will, her second place finish, and the fourth place is denied her bronze, or her third place finish. And it's not just the medaling. There are various other things that come out that result from winning a Division I, say, NCAA swim meet. Sponsorship opportunities, endorsement deals, all manner of important things that could be important to the winner's income and career and employment. Possibly the difference between making a living in her sport or simply graduating from college, hypothetically, and going into some other profession like marketing or business of some kind, business management, something like that. So this is women, one would think, and therefore feminists, one would also think, should be protesting vehemently against fake women being allowed to participate in women's sports. But there's a reason that women of a feminist persuasion cannot. They absolutely cannot. Remember, they've been telling us for decades that women can do anything a man can do, frequently better. And in the case of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, remember how that little joke went, that Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did, only she did it backwards and in heels? And everyone laughed and chuckled and ha 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 ha. And of course the irony was that Fred Astaire got all the glory while Ginger Rogers was the one with all the talent. That was the implication of that little joke. Well, it's cute, but it's meaningless. In actual sports, men will always just dominate. And it's not dominating by a little bit. Men will dominate by a gigantic margin. We come back to the story of Venus and Serena Williams. They played a man named Brosh, Braasch. He was a man. They played, and remember, this is Venus and Serena Williams, two of the best women tennis players ever produced in the history of the world. Some argue that Serena is the best ever. So they played this man Brosh, and he beat them 6-0 and 6-1. So he didn't just beat them, he absolutely routed them. What you may not have known is that Mr. Brosh was rated number 203rd in the world as a men's tennis player. And very shortly after this particular match against the Williams sisters, he dropped down to 300th and below, somewhere below 300th in the world. Also unknown is on the day that he played his matches against the Williams sisters, he had golfed, and he had played 18 holes. Not only had he played 18 holes, after the 18 holes he'd sat down and had a few pints with his friends at the 19th hole. And then he went and played the Williams sisters and trounced them. So this notion that women can compete in the sporting arena with men is just ridiculous. And we see it in all sports. There's no prohibition against women playing in the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, but there is no woman who could play in Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA or the NHL. They're just not there, and they're orders of magnitude lower in ability than the men who are currently playing there now. In fact, most women couldn't make most Division I NCAA men's sports teams. Most women couldn't make most Division II or III men's sports teams in their sport of choice. So that's the deal. But feminists, remember, have been telling us for decades, women can do anything men can do, only better. Now they're stuck. Because now, as it turns out, when men show up and play in women's sports leagues, they are not just better, they're way better. And they can participate in women's sports leagues if and only if they've been significantly weakened for a significant amount of time by having their testosterone levels lowered. So these weakened men are going into women's sports leagues and running roughshod over the women. Feminists cannot protest against that. They've been telling us, bring it on, we'll show you how great we are. And then the men show up, and they show up in weakened condition. They show up as, let's face it, less manly men, much more womanly men, but men still, men all the same, and they're riding roughshod over the women. So feminists can't say, get the men out, because that immediately says everything we've been telling you for decades was wrong. Now, we know it was wrong. We've all known it was wrong. We all play with these little lies. We play with them for decades. And we essentially let them get away with it, because not to let them get away with it is to risk a very loud, very vocal, very, how would one say this? A very loud hissy fit. And of course, as we all know, men have been bending the knee to feminists for decades. So don't expect any support from us guys out there, you other guys who might say, look, this is ridiculous. Women can't play with men. They just can't. They can't stay with men in the sports arena. So for all you men who say that very commonsensical thing, unfortunately, don't expect actual support from the other guys, because we've been bending the knee, as we always have. Good gracious. We've been bending the knee to women for millennia. That's what we as men do. We support them, and we shut up, and we go out. We go to work, whether it's killing the brontosaurus. Yes, I know, no such thing as a brontosaurus. Whether it's, and there were no dinosaurs when humans were around. But what I'm saying is, whether we go out and kill the bear and bring home the slab of meat and throw it onto the table, and then she cooks it over the fire, when we did that, we still were doing what she told us to do, because that was the arrangement. That's always been the arrangement. The woman she orders and consolidates and arranges the living quarters, and the man goes out there and keeps the wolves at bay and brings home the deer every couple of weeks, so that the family can eat. That's the way it is. And that translated in today's day and age to the man gets up every day and basically goes out and works his tail off to put food on the table. The woman goes, if employment is optional in the family, it's optional for the woman. It's not the man who can say, hey, you know what, you go and have your career and I'll stay home with the kids. Typically, it's not always true, but 99% of the time, employment for a man is not optional. He must work. Many times, in fact, most of the time, employment for the woman is optional. She can decide to opt out for 5 years and take care of the kids, 10 years and take care of the kids, then relaunch a career, that type of thing. Yes, the family income suffers, and yes, the global economy of the United States is now structured around a two-income family, which is a shame. That was one of the great disservices that feminism did to America and to Americans. But employment is still optional for women in many, many, many cases. So back to why feminists can't say to fake women, why feminists can't say to fake women, get out of women's sports. Because they've been saying it doesn't matter. Whether you're a fake woman or a real man, if you participate in women's sports, we women are going to kick your backsides all up one side of the field and down the other. And as long as no one ever actually tested that hypothesis, well, feminists could keep making the claim. Well, now guess what? Fake women, weakened men, are now starting to test the hypothesis, and these weak men are proving to be far better women in women's sports than actual women. So the hypothesis has been exploded. We men, honestly, like idiots, said, yeah. Rather than just saying, okay, let's prove it. Because every time we go out and prove it, or every time we say that, the men just run roughshod over the women. Again, I apologize for saying run roughshod 15 different times, but that's what happens. We see the story of how which women's soccer team? I think it was the Australian women's soccer team was beaten by the under 15 boys soccer team. How the retired women's soccer team in England was beaten by the Wrentham team, who was basically over-the-hill men. So these were professional women, but they were retired. They weren't in the prime of their career, but they were playing against rank amateurs who were never pros ever. And these amateur men beat them 12-0. I mean, it wasn't as if it was close. It was a mercy rule victory by the men. So, bottom line, feminists have one choice. They have made it. Remember how they're supposedly all about choice, right? Yeah, okay. They've locked themselves, or they've painted themselves into the corner where they have only one choice, and that's to just shut up, ride it out, and hope the fad of fake women going into women's sports runs its course and gets out of the news cycle, and they can go back to pretending that women can do anything that men can do and do it better, and having us men just nod our heads. Now, we men have an opportunity. We can say Okay, this proves it. Now, can you guys, you feminists, just shut up about this thing about women can do everything men can do? They can't, and this has been well proven. So shut up about it. And honestly, the entire house of cards that is feminism should tumble to the ground as a result of this whole phenomenon of fake women participating. When I say fake women, I mean men. So this whole phenomenon of fake women participating in men's sport. I'm sorry, from the top. Fake women participating in women's sports and dominating those sports. All of them. I have to throw one more anecdote at you. There's a gentleman whom I enjoy immensely, whose commentary I enjoy immensely. His name is Zuby. He's a British man, but you can never really tell by listening to him. He's got a very much an American accent. And Zuby, one day, Zuby, by the way, is a fairly strong man. He's a young man, young black man, very fit, works out, very muscular. He walked into, in London, I believe it was in London anyway, he walked into the women's weightlifting competition, whatever it was. Let's call it the deadlift, where you essentially take the weights and just lift them up off the floor. And I think you have to lock your knees, and they have to be held roughly at arm's length, so just at your waist or below the waist. And if you can do that, that's a deadlift. And he went in, he said, guess what? Don't let your lion eyes deceive you, I'm really a woman. Here's this very masculine man. Beard, mustache, black man, very heavily muscled, very articulate. This guy is fun to listen to. He said, don't let your lion eyes and ears deceive you. I'm not a man. I'm really a woman, and I'm here for the weightlifting competition. Well, he went in, easily won the gold, and left the competition and said, okay, I'm no longer a woman. I'm no longer a woman. I'm back to being a man. He basically self-identified as a woman for a few minutes to get into the competition, won it, took home the gold medal, left the competition, said he no longer self-identifies as a woman, all done. And it was to prove a point. It was to prove a point how ridiculous this notion of fake woman. Here's this obviously fake woman, Zuby, obviously fake woman, goes into the competition, wins it, goes home. Someone somewhere should have said, before he went in to win that competition, should have said, look, you're a man, get lost. But that sends, again, the whole house of cards tumbling to the ground. And so they couldn't say it. They had to grit their teeth, let this man come in, win the competition, bring the gold home, tell everyone about it. He's a vlogger, and he does lots and lots of videos. Look him up on YouTube, Z-U-B-Y, Zuby. And he's told everyone about it for years. He made no bones about it. He confessed. He said, I just went in, said I was a woman, participated, and that was it. That happened in Canada, too. Happened just recently. The guy went in, said, I'm a woman. This guy's a big, burly man. I mean, he was a tank of a man. Beard, mustache, bald. Went to the women's weightlifting competition, said, I'm a woman. Here I am as a woman. I'm here for the weightlifting competition. Came in, smashed the record by 100 kilograms, which is 220 or 230 pounds. And the record that he smashed was a fake woman's record. In other words, the record that he smashed was done by another fake woman, and it had beaten the previous record done by an actual woman by quite a bit. So this is just ludicrous. And if more of these things can happen, then people can finally say, okay, enough. It's got to stop. Feminism was wrong. It was wrong in most of its particulars. It had some points. They weren't actual points, but you could see where they could say, okay, it is time to let women vote. Now, understand, these are victories that were won 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago. Yes, women should be able to vote. Yes, they should be able to work. Yes, if they do the same job as a man, they should get paid the same as a man, things like that. But those victories were won long, long, long ago. There has not been a need for feminism. There's not been a reason for feminism for decades. And then someone needs to have the testosterone to say that. We men need to have the testosterone to say that. There hasn't been a need for feminism for decades. Okay, those were my thoughts on fake women and feminism. Bottom line, feminism has nothing to say to fake men participating in women's sports. They just have nothing to say. So kind of keep that in mind next time you see that someone get all upset that some man walks into a women's swim meet or a weightlifting competition or a tennis tournament or something like that. A golf tournament might be next, and goes out and just blows all the women away, breaks all sorts of records, and says, okay, all done. And then after he's done so, he goes home and says, I'm a man again. Just like that. Don't be surprised. 4th of July is coming up. This is the 2nd of July. It's a Sunday. 4th of July is this coming Tuesday. I wish you all a very happy, healthy, blessed holiday. And please remember, God bless America. And God bless you all.